What if the clock was never just a warning? What if it was a map? We've spent years watching the heroes of Hawkins fight monsters from another dimension, but we've been asking the wrong questions. It was never about what the Upside Down is, but when it is. Before we dive into the temporal rabbit hole that could change everything you think you know about Stranger Things, one quick question for the comments. What's one detail from the show you can't stop thinking about? Let's see who's caught the same clues. Alright, now that your minds are primed, let's begin to unravel the timeline. Here's where it gets weird. We've been led to believe that the Upside Down is an ancient, primordial dimension that has existed for eons, a dark reflection of our own world. Vecna himself, or Henry Creel, claims to have discovered it as a boy, a realm untouched by humanity where he could shape a new world. But the evidence we see on screen tells a very, very different story. It screams a paradox so loud it's a wonder the whole town of Hawkins hasn't been shaken apart by it. The biggest theory, the one that acts as a skeleton key for so many other mysteries, is the Vecna time loop theory, or more accurately, the upside-down time freeze. This theory posits that the Upside Down as we know it, the decaying, vine-choked replica of Hawkins, didn't exist in that form until November 6, 1983, the day Will Byers vanished. The day 11 opened the first Mother Gate. According to this idea, that singular catastrophic event didn't just rip a hole between dimensions, it took a snapshot. It flash-froze the Upside Down's version of Hawkins in that exact moment, creating a perfect, permanent echo of the town on that fateful day. It's not a parallel world, it's a temporal scar, a ghost of a day that never ended. This isn't just fan speculation, it's practically written on the walls. The clues are staggering when you start to connect them, painting a picture of a villain who isn't just a monster, but a warden of a timeless prison. It recontextualizes every monster, every incursion, and every tick of that grandfather clock. It suggests that the fight isn't just for the soul of Hawkins, but for the flow of time itself. Could it be that Vecna's power isn't just about invading minds, but about stopping time? Or, more terrifyingly, that he himself is trapped by it, and his grand plan is to drag our world into the same stasis? The evidence for the time freeze theory isn't subtle. It's not hidden in a single frame or a cryptic line of dialogue. It's a fundamental aspect of the world building that the characters themselves discover, and it's the kind of earth-shattering revelation that the show has been building towards. Let's rewind to Season 4, Episode 7. Nancy, Steve, Robin, and Eddie are in the Upside Down trying to get back to their world. They go to Nancy's house, a place she knows like the back of her hand. She's looking for her guns, which she started keeping in her room in Season 2. She goes to the shoebox where they should be, but they aren't there. Instead, she finds a pair of old shoes. Confusion flickers across her face. Then she looks around the room. The wallpaper, the posters on the wall, the clutter on her desk. It's all wrong. It's her room, but it's her room from years ago. In a moment of chilling realization, she finds her school diary. She frantically flips through the pages, her breath catching in her throat. The last entry is dated November 6, 1983. Nothing in the upside-down version of her room, or by extension Hawkins, is from after that date. The castle Byers fort is there, exactly as it was before it was destroyed. The weapons in the police station armory are the models from before the newer ones were stocked. It's a perfect atom-for-atom recreation of Hawkins, but it's a photograph. A photograph taken at the precise moment of the initial trauma. This single discovery is the linchpin of the entire theory. It's not just a creepy detail, it's a fundamental law of this dimension. It directly contradicts Vecna's own account of finding a pristine, untouched, prehistoric world. If he found this place decades ago, why does it look like 1983 Hawkins? Did it just coincidentally evolve to mirror a random suburban town? The odds are astronomical. The far more logical conclusion is that the Upside Down was something else entirely, before 1983. Perhaps it was the chaotic, red lightning storm-filled hellscape we see in Vecna's memories, a formless dimension of raw potential and hive-minded particles. When 11, a psychic of unimaginable power, made contact with the Demogorgon and blasted open that first gate in Hawkins' lab, her own mind, filled with the images and geography of the town she knew, provided the blueprint. The Upside Down, like a psychic sponge, absorbed the layout of Hawkins and imprinted it onto its very fabric. And because this was the moment of its birth as we know it, it became locked. Time for the Upside Down began and ended on that day. The implications of this time-locked dimension are massive, and they ripple outwards, recontextualizing almost every major event in the series. Think about Will in Season 1. He survived in the Upside Down for a week. How? It's a question that's always been hand-waved away with vague notions of him being good at hiding. But what if the reason he could survive is because the Upside Down was, in a very real sense, his own town? He knew the streets, the hiding spots, the layout of his own house. He was navigating a ghost of his home, not a truly alien world. This makes his survival far more plausible. It also deepens the tragedy. He wasn't just in a monster's lair, he was trapped in a perverted memory of everything he had lost. The Christmas lights he used to communicate with Joyce weren't just a clever trick. They were a desperate attempt to manipulate the temporal echo, to send a message from a frozen moment back into the flowing river of real time. Now consider the Demogorgon. We see it hunting in our world, but in the Upside Down, why does it seem to know the layout of Hawkins so well? Because it's part of that frozen snapshot. Its hunting ground is a fixed, unchanging map. It doesn't need to learn the terrain. The terrain is an extension of its own reality. This also explains the particles. The floating spores that seem to be everywhere in the Upside Down could be more than just atmospheric dust. They could be particles of time itself, crystallized moments from November 6, 1983, endlessly circulating. When someone from our world enters, they are essentially breathing in the past. This could be the mechanism for the psychological toll the Upside Down takes, the way it dredges up old memories and traumas, something Vecna is an expert at exploiting. He's not just a psychic predator, he's a master of weaponizing a world built entirely out of a traumatic memory. His entire modus operandi is based on using the past against his victims, and he lives in a dimension that is literally a monument to a single, terrible day. It's too perfect to be a coincidence. It's the ultimate haunted house, a place where the past is not only remembered, it is the very air you breathe and the ground you walk on. So, what does this mean for the end game? If the theory holds, defeating Vecna isn't as simple as killing a monster. The true enemy isn't just the creature, it's the concept, it's the frozen moment. The final battle might not be a physical confrontation, but a temporal one. Could the goal be to unfreeze the Upside Down, to force it to catch up to the present, or to sever its connection to that specific date? This opens up fascinating possibilities. Perhaps the key isn't brute force, but a specific, targeted action that can overwrite the initial event of November 6, 1983. This could involve 11, whose powers created the imprint in the first place. Maybe she doesn't need to close the gate. She needs to update the file. She needs to use her psychic connection to force the Upside Down's copy of Hawkins to sync with the present day. What would that even look like? Would the buildings instantly change? Would Castle Byers crumble into dust? Would Nancy's guns suddenly appear in her shoebox? It's a mind-bending concept. It also gives a new, profound purpose to the grandfather clock motif. It's not just Vecna's calling card. It's a symbol of the entire conflict, a broken clock, forever stuck. Vecna's goal might be to break our world's clock too, to merge the frozen Upside Down with the living, breathing world of Hawkins, creating a permanent, static hellscape under his control. The victory condition for our heroes, then, would be to get the clock ticking again, to restore the flow of time. This reframes the entire saga from a simple story of kids fighting monsters into a cosmic battle over the nature of memory, trauma, and time itself. It's a far more sophisticated and emotionally resonant conflict. The ultimate question then becomes, if you could erase the day that started all the suffering, would you? Even if it meant rewriting history and potentially losing the bonds that were forged in the fire of that trauma. The time freeze theory doesn't just explain the law, it elevates the entire story to a new mythological level. But let's push that idea even further. We've always viewed Will Byers as the first victim, the catalyst, the boy who was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. His survival was a miracle, his subsequent connection to the Mind Flayer a tragic curse. But what if his role was never that passive? What if he wasn't just the first one taken, but the one who unintentionally gave the Upside Down its shape? This is a darker, more intricate theory, one that sits comfortably alongside the time freeze concept. It posits that Will Byers, a creative, sensitive, and profoundly imaginative child, is a latent psychic of immense power, and it was his mind, not just Eleven's, that served as the blueprint for the Upside Down's version of Hawkins. It suggests that the dimension Henry Creel found was indeed a formless, chaotic place of raw energy. But when Will was pulled into it, terrified and alone, his own powerful imagination, saturated with the details of his home and his Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, began to project onto the malleable fabric of that reality. He didn't just hide in the Upside Down, he helped create it. This theory reframes Will from a mere pawn to a king on the chessboard, a player with a power he doesn't even know he possesses. It explains so many lingering questions and transforms the entire narrative from a story about a girl who saves a boy into a story about two powerful psychics on opposite sides of a cosmic war, one trained and one completely unaware of his own terrifying potential. The clues have been there since the very beginning, hiding in plain sight, in his drawings, his games, and his unique, unbreakable connection to the enemy. The evidence for Will's creative power is woven into the very fabric of Season 1 and beyond. Let's go back to the beginning, to the D&D campaign in Mike's basement. The creature they face is the Demogorgon. Will's character, Will the Wise, is a powerful wizard. When Will goes missing, what do the boys name the creature that took him? The Demogorgon. This seems like a simple case of kids using their game to understand the horrors they're facing. But what if it's the other way around? What if the creature didn't just resemble the Demogorgon, but it became the Demogorgon? Because that's what was in Will's head when he was taken. He was terrified, running from a monster, and in his mind, that monster was the prince of demons from his favorite game. The formless entity from the Upside Down, perhaps drawn to his psychic energy, took on the form he was imagining. It's a classic horror trope, the monster that becomes your greatest fear. Now let's look at Season 2. The new Big Bad is a vast, spider-like entity that controls the dimension from the sky. What do the kids call it? The Mind Flayer, another powerful, telepathic monster from their D&D lore. And who is the one who sees it, who draws it, who is psychically tethered to it? Will. He draws page after page of the creature, its shadowy tentacles reaching down over Hawkins. Is he just seeing what's there? Or is he, in his terror, giving the hive mind a form it didn't have before? Joyce herself calls Will a sensitive child. Hopper calls him a little different. This has always been interpreted as referring to his gentle nature or his sexuality, but it could have a double meaning. What if his sensitivity is literal, a psychic sensitivity that makes him a beacon, an antenna, and, most frighteningly, a projector? The Upside Down looks like Hawkins because that's Will's home. It's frozen on the day he was taken because that's the moment of his greatest trauma. The monster is the Demogorgon because that was his game's villain. The next monster is the Mind Flayer because his connection deepened. The world isn't just a reflection, it's a reflection of Will Byers. This theory gains even more traction when you consider the specifics of the Upside Down's design. It's not just a generic, ruined version of Hawkins, it's a version filtered through a lens of fear and decay, but with specific, personal touches. Castle Byers, Will's personal sanctuary in the woods, was a key location for him in the Upside Down. He hid there. It was his safe space. Why would a primordial dimension have a perfect replica of a child's handmade fort? Because that fort was a place of immense emotional significance to its unintentional creator. It was a psychic anchor for him in the storm. Furthermore, remember Will's artistic talent. He is constantly drawing, creating worlds on paper. In Season 4, his painting for Mike is a huge plot point. It depicts their party of friends as fantasy heroes fighting a dragon. It's a manifestation of his love and his desire for connection. What if this artistic, creative impulse is the passive, uncontrolled version of a much greater power? The power to take what's in his mind and make it real. Vecna, or Henry Creel, is also an artist. He drew spiders, the Mind Flayer, and other dark visions. It's a parallel that's too strong to ignore. The Duffer Brothers have even stated that the final season will heavily focus on Will and bring his journey full circle, coming back to Season 1. What could be a more powerful conclusion than the revelation that the key to the whole mystery has been with Will the entire time? It would mean that to defeat the Upside Down, they don't just need 11's power to fight, but Will's power to unmake what he has made. He would have to confront his own trauma, his own fear, and essentially rewrite the dimension he inadvertently painted into existence. It's a beautiful, tragic, and empowering arc for a character who has spent too long as a victim. If Will is the psychic architect of the Upside Down's appearance, the implications are staggering and redefine his relationship with every other character. His connection to the Mind Flayer and Vecna is no longer one of simple victimhood. It's a connection between creator and creation, or at least co-creators. Vecna may be the master of the hive mind, but Will is the one who gave it its most effective camouflage, the comforting, familiar layout of Hawkins. This makes their connection a psychic tug-of-war over the very nature of that reality. Vecna wants to use Will's creation to invade and conquer our world, while Will, if he were to realize his power, could be the only one who can truly dismantle it from the inside. This also changes his relationship with 11. They are two sides of the same psychic coin. 11's power is overt, kinetic, and destructive. She can move things with her mind, open gates, and fight monsters head-on. Will's power would be more subtle, creative, and passive, the ability to shape reality, to dream things into existence. It's the difference between a soldier and an artist. Both are powerful, but in completely different ways. The final battle might require both of them working in concert. 11 to hold back the physical tide of monsters, and Will to psychically unravel the very fabric of the world they come from. It would be a beautiful symmetry, the two outsiders who were drawn into this conflict from the very beginning, becoming the ultimate key to its resolution. It turns Will from the damsel in distress of the group into its secret weapon, the quiet wizard who holds the spell that can save them all. The boy who was defined by being lost finds his purpose in finally taking control of the map. It's not just a theory, it's the most narratively satisfying conclusion for his character, bringing his story from the basement D&D table to a cosmic scale. Now let's pivot to a different, altogether more terrifying possibility. We've considered the Upside Down as a parallel place and a frozen moment in time. But what if it's neither? What if the desolation and decay aren't just a spooky aesthetic? What if the Upside Down isn't another dimension at all, but another time? Specifically, our future. This theory proposes that the Upside Down is the Earth decades or even centuries from now, after Vecna has won. It's the post-apocalyptic result of his successful invasion, a world reshaped in his image and left to rot. The reason it's connected to Hawkins in 1983 isn't because that's when it was created, but because that's the point in the past from which Vecna is orchestrating his own victory. He is, in essence, reaching back through time from his blighted future to ensure that it comes to pass. This turns the story from a horror fantasy into a grim, dark, science fiction tale about a predetermined future and the desperate struggle to prevent it. It suggests that every victory the Hawkins crew has achieved has been temporary, merely delaying an inevitable doom that has, in a sense, already happened. The stakes are no longer just about saving a town. They're about saving the entire future of the human race from a foregone conclusion. It's a bleak, chilling idea, and it aligns perfectly with the Cold War anxieties that permeate the 1980s setting. The visual evidence for this dark future theory is compelling. Look at the state of the Upside Down. It's not just a dark copy of Hawkins, it's a world in a state of advanced entropy. The buildings are not just vine-covered, they are crumbling, showing signs of extreme weathering and decay that would take decades, if not centuries, to occur naturally. The air is filled with toxic-looking spores, suggesting a complete ecological collapse, a world where the atmosphere itself is hostile to normal life. There is no sign of animal life, no birds, no insects, aside from the creatures of the hive mind. This is consistent with a post-apocalyptic world, one that has been conquered, transformed, and then left fallow by its new master. The constant lightning storms and the red, ominous sky could be the result of a permanent, planet-wide atmospheric change caused by the full-scale merger of the dimensions. This isn't just a mirror, it's a ruin. It's what our world looks like after the final battle has been lost. The connection to Hawkins is the linchpin. Vecna, from this dead future, needs to establish a beachhead in the past. He targets Hawkins because of the presence of 11 and the Hawkins Lab, the place where the veil between worlds is at its thinnest. His invasion isn't an invasion from another place, but from another time. The gates he opens are not just spatial portals, they are temporal paradoxes, tunnels through history. This explains his methodical, patient approach. He's not in a hurry. From his perspective in the future, he has all the time in the world because he's already won. All he has to do is ensure the events in the past play out correctly to lead to his inevitable reign. This theory also provides a chilling explanation for the hive mind and the nature of the Upside Down's inhabitants. If the Upside Down is a future where Vecna succeeded in merging the dimensions, then the creatures we see, the Demogorgons, the Demodogs, the Mind Flayer itself, might not be alien species. They could be the horrifying evolutionary endpoint of Earth's life, twisted and corrupted by the hive mind's influence over generations. Or, even more disturbingly, they could be what's left of the humans and animals that were absorbed into the collective. The Mind Flayer isn't just a cloud of particles, it's the consciousness of a conquered planet, a trillion souls screaming in a single, unified chorus of agony, all under Vecna's control. He didn't just kill the world, he assimilated it. This makes his threat infinitely more personal and horrifying. He's not just a murderer, he's a collector of souls on a planetary scale. This also reframes the idea of the flayed in Season 3. When the Mind Flayer takes over people like Billy, it's a microcosm of its larger goal. It's a preview of the future, showing how it breaks down individuals and absorbs them into its will, turning them into flesh puppets. The entire population of the future Earth could be part of this collective, their consciousness trapped and their bodies transformed into monstrous foot soldiers for Vecna's army. This is cosmic horror on a grand scale, borrowing from an H.P. Lovecraft or Arthur C. Clarke level of existential dread. The implications for our heroes are dire. If they are fighting against a future that has already happened, then are their actions futile? This introduces the classic time travel dilemma, the bootstrap paradox. Is their struggle against Vecna the very thing that causes his victory? Could their attempts to close the gates and fight back be the exact sequence of events that he needs to happen to cement his timeline? It's a terrifying thought.
It means that every choice they make is fraught with cosmic significance. The victory condition changes dramatically. They can't just kill Vecna in their time. That might not be enough. If his consciousness exists in the future, could he just respawn or send another probe back? The only way to truly win might be to create a paradox so massive that it shatters his timeline. They would need to do something so disruptive that it makes his future impossible.
What could that be? Perhaps it involves destroying the link itself, not just closing the gate, but somehow erasing the potential for a gate to ever be opened. Or maybe it requires a sacrifice of unimaginable proportions, someone traveling forward into the blighted future to fight Vecna on his home turf. It turns the final season into a high-stakes chess match, not just with a monster, but with causality itself. It's a desperate race against a clock that has already struck midnight, a fight to give the world a future that it has, in another reality, already lost. This theory transforms Stranger Things from a nostalgic horror adventure into a profound and tragic sci-fi epic. In the world of Dungeons and Dragons, death is not always the end. A powerful enough wizard can bring a hero back, but sometimes when a hero dies in a place of great evil, they don't come back as themselves. They return as something twisted, a dark reflection of their former glory, often in service to the very evil they died fighting. This brings us to one of the most popular, heartbreaking, and narratively compelling theories for the final season. Eddie Munson will return, not as the metalhead hero we knew and loved, but as Cass the Bloody-Handed, a vampire lieutenant of Vecna, destined to be his right-hand man and, ultimately, his betrayer. Eddie's death in Season 4 was heroic. He sacrificed himself to buy his friends more time, dying in Dustin's arms after a most metal final stand against a swarm of demobats. It was a perfect, tragic arc for the outcast who finally found a cause worth dying for. But what if that wasn't his final act? What if his death in the heart of the Upside Down, bitten and drained by creatures directly linked to Vecna's hive mind, was not an ending, but a dark baptism? The theory suggests that Vecna, recognizing the defiant spirit of the boy who played his song in the face of doom, will raise him. He will resurrect Eddie, twist his heroism into servitude, and make him a powerful warrior in his army, a vampire knight to lead his forces. The evidence for this theory is deeply rooted in the D&D lore that the show so meticulously uses as a framework for its supernatural events. In D&D canon, Vecna is a powerful lich who was once a mortal man. His most trusted lieutenant was a human knight named Cass. Vecna gifted Cass a sentient, evil sword, and Cass became a powerful warlord, his greatest champion. However, the sword eventually corrupted Cass, whispering to him and feeding his ambition till he grew resentful of his master. In a climactic battle, Cass turned on Vecna, and while he was ultimately defeated, he managed to sever Vecna's hand and eye, the very artifacts that become central to Vecna's later lore. Cass himself became a vampire lord, a tragic, cursed figure forever defined by his relationship with his former master. Now map this onto Eddie Munson. He is the charismatic leader of the Hellfire Club, a master of the D&D universe. He dies a warrior's death in the Upside Down. The creatures that kill him are demobats, bat-like creatures, a classic vampire motif. He is, in essence, bitten by vampires. The Upside Down has been shown to have resurrective or transformative properties. It transformed Henry Creel into Vecna. It's not a stretch to imagine it could reanimate a corpse, especially one so recently deceased and saturated with its energy. The narrative poetry is almost too perfect to ignore. The master of the game becomes a pawn in a real-life version of it. The leader of the Hellfire Club is literally resurrected from a hellish dimension. The imagery is all there, waiting to be connected. Let's dig deeper into the specifics of Eddie's final moments and how they set up this transformation. His Master of Puppets performance wasn't just a cool rock and roll moment. It was a declaration of defiance against Vecna, a man who sees himself as the ultimate puppet master. Eddie, in that moment, was the antithesis of Vecna's philosophy. He was pure, chaotic, joyful freedom. This makes him an irresistible target for a tyrant like Vecna. What better way to prove your absolute power than to take your most defiant enemy and turn him into your most loyal slave? To take the man who screamed "This is for you" at Chrissy's memory and force him to serve the very being that murdered her? It's a level of psychological cruelty that is perfectly in line with Vecna's character. Furthermore, Dustin's final promise to Eddie is crucial. He tells the town that Eddie died a hero, clearing his name. But we, the audience, know that's not the full truth. To the world, Eddie Munson is still a satanic cult leader responsible for the town's tragedies. If Eddie were to return as a monstrous vampiric figure, it would be a horrifying confirmation of the town's ignorant fears. The outcast they scapegoated would return as the very monster they accused him of being. This creates an incredible emotional conflict for the main characters, especially Dustin. He would be forced to confront his resurrected friend, his hero, who is now a monster. Would he try to save him? Or would he have to be the one to put him down for good? The dramatic potential is off the charts. It's a classic, tragic hero arc in the vein of a Greek tragedy or a Shakespearean drama, and it fits the heightened, operatic tone of the show's final act. If Eddie returns as Cass, it solves a major narrative problem for the final season. How do you physically get to Vecna? Vecna is a psychic entity, often operating from the shadows or within the hive mind. He's not an easy target. Cass, in the D&D lore, was Vecna's bodyguard and top general. A resurrected Eddie could serve the same purpose. He would be the final boss before the final boss, the gatekeeper to Vecna's throne. The Hawkins crew would have to fight their way through their own friend, a superpowered vampiric version of Eddie, likely wielding a powerful weapon forged in the Upside Down, a parallel to Cass's evil sword. This provides a visceral, emotional climax for the season's action. But the theory's true power lies in the final part of the Cass story, the betrayal. Cass was the one who ultimately wounded Vecna, creating the opportunity for his defeat. If the show follows this lore, Eddie's arc would not end with him as a villain. In the final moments, something of the old Eddie, his love for his friends, his rebellious spirit, his memory of Dustin, would break through Vecna's control. In a moment of supreme sacrifice, he would turn on his master, creating the opening that Eleven and the others need to land the final blow. He would die a second time, but this time he would fulfill his heroic destiny in the most epic way imaginable, saving the world and finding true redemption. He would prove that even in the face of absolute evil and corruption, the spirit of the brave, metal-loving outcast from Hawkins, Indiana, could not be completely extinguished. It's a bittersweet, powerful ending that would solidify Eddie Munson as one of the most legendary characters in modern television history. So we have 4 distinct yet interwoven tapestries of what the final truth of Stranger Things might be. We have the time freeze, a theory grounded in hard, on-screen evidence that redefines the Upside Down as a temporal scar, a ghostly echo of a single, traumatic day. This theory turns the conflict into a battle against the past itself, with the heroes fighting not just a monster, but the very concept of being trapped by a memory. It's a cerebral, high-concept idea that elevates the lore to a new level of sophistication. Then we have the theory of Will the Wise, the unintentional architect. This is a character-driven theory that reframes our first victim as a secret powerhouse, a psychic artist whose imagination gave the Upside Down its form. This puts the emotional core of the story back on the shoulders of the original Hawkins kids, suggesting the key to unmaking the nightmare lies within the mind of the boy who survived it first. It's a story of empowerment, of turning a victim into a savior, and it brings the entire saga full circle, right back to that D&D table in Mike's basement. Both of these theories can, and perhaps must, coexist. Will's psychic projection could be the very reason why the Upside Down became a frozen snapshot of Hawkins on November the 6th, 1983. His mind, in its terror, provided the blueprint, and Eleven's raw power provided the energy to imprint it, locking it in time forever. The two ideas don't contradict, they complete each other, forming a cohesive explanation for both the what and the why of the show's central mystery. On the other hand, we have two theories that look forward, predicting the future of the plot and its characters. The Upside Down as a post-apocalyptic future is the bleakest and most grandiose of all the theories. It transforms the show into a tragic sci-fi epic, a desperate fight against a predetermined doom. It suggests that our heroes are not just fighting an invasion, but a paradox, a battle against a future that has, in some sense, already been lost. This raises the stakes to a cosmic level, making their struggle not just for their town, but for the very possibility of a future for humanity. It's a terrifying and ambitious concept that aligns with the show's increasing scale and its 80s Cold War anxieties about annihilation. Finally, we have the return of Eddie Munson as Kaz the Bloody-Handed. This is the most narratively driven theory, a prediction based on character arcs, emotional payoff, and the show's own D&D rulebook. It promises a final act filled with pathos, tragedy, and ultimate redemption. It's a theory that focuses on the heart of the show, the bonds of friendship, and the willingness to sacrifice for those you love. It would provide an unforgettable, emotionally devastating conflict for Dustin and the others, forcing them to confront a monstrous version of their fallen friend, and would give Eddie the heroic, world-saving finale he deserves. These two forward-looking theories also interact in interesting ways. If the future is a desolate ruin ruled by Vecna, then his need for a powerful lieutenant like a resurrected Eddie makes perfect sense. An undead, vampiric Kaz would be the perfect general for a dead world, a symbol of Vecna's power to conquer not just life, but death itself. So which path is the most likely? The beauty of Stranger Things is that it could be all of them. The Duffer Brothers are masters of synthesis, of weaving together disparate genres and ideas into a single, cohesive whole. It's highly probable that the final truth is a combination of these elements. The Upside Down is likely a dimension frozen in time on November the 6th, 1983, its form shaped by the terrified, creative mind of Will Byers when 11 first ripped open the gate. This is the foundation, the law that explains the past. From this foundation, Vecna, a being who now controls this time-locked echo, is working to bring about a future where our world becomes just as desolate and dead as his own, a future we are getting terrifying glimpses of. And to achieve this, he will use every weapon at his disposal, including the resurrected body of a fallen hero, Eddie Munson, to serve as his dark champion. This synthesis allows the show to pay off its world-building mysteries, complete its character arcs, raise the stakes to an apocalyptic level, and deliver a heartbreaking, personal final conflict. It's a grand, unified theory of Stranger Things, one that honors everything that has come before while pushing the story toward a truly epic conclusion. The fight isn't just against one thing. It's a war on multiple fronts, a battle against a monster, a race against time, a struggle to save a friend, and a desperate attempt to rewrite a future that is screaming back at them from the other side of the gate. Ultimately, all these theories spiral around a central theme that has been the heart of Stranger Things since the very beginning: trauma. The upside down is a physical manifestation of trauma, a wound on reality that never heals, a place forever stuck in the moment of its deepest pain. Vecna weaponizes personal trauma, using his victims' worst memories to destroy them. And our heroes are all defined by their own scars, both visible and invisible. What these theories suggest is that the only way to defeat the ultimate evil is to confront the ultimate trauma. They will have to heal the wound in reality itself. But as they prepare for one last roll of the dice, for one final campaign against the forces of darkness, we are left with one last haunting question. We've explored time loops, creative gods, apocalyptic futures, and resurrected heroes, all centered on Vecna. But what if, after all this, the most terrifying truth is that Vecna isn't the final boss? What if he's just the gatekeeper to something far, far older?